Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. We're here again with a nature mystic discussion with myself and Melissa. And today we're going to talk about the tools of the tradition. I believe we might have talked about this once before, maybe now that I say it out loud, but we're going to just kind of cover some of the tools and more importantly, answer your questions about the Peruvian tradition of nature mysticism.
Yeah, even if we've already done it, doesn't hurt to do it again.
Doesn't hurt to do it again. And I have all kinds of new toys and tools that Melissa's going to love, like little noise makers. Oh my gosh, look at this little thing. It's a little whistle that makes it sound like a bird thing. But if I do this, everybody will clear off the street. But like little whistles and rattles and all kinds of fun things.
And I can mute my whole laptop and not hear a thing. So that's that's a great thing. And the fun thing is, even with all of the tools and the, handy hand stuff, ultimately in the end, really, you don't need any of it. So that's always the fun thing. But it does help hold the space.
When we first started the program, one of the things Zane would tell us is to bring your most sacred medicine piece. And what I had initially chosen was this little clay flute, because for me, my most sacred medicine piece, and really the only tool in this tradition that you really do need, is your breath. It symbolizes your actual breath, because everything you do is with the vital energy force of breathing in, breathing out. And one of the biggest tools that we have in the tradition is one called a bakui, which is like a charged breath of intention. And that's when you'll see like Zane or myself take like a little bit of Florida water, just put it on the purse of your lips and atomize it, spit it out. But it's not just the Florida water, it's like that charged breath of intention with it. So with your breath carries a lot of the power and potency of what you're doing when you're working with yourself or with the client. So I'm going to go with number one tool, breath. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for coming to our Mystic Talk.
We have nothing else to talk about. Thank you so much.
No, everything else is but really, like, the breath is like, and think about that as you consider if this program is for you. Like, what is your most sacred medicine piece? Some people brought in little statues of deities or gurus, or like a sacred item that was passed down from generation to generation. If you really think about your inner work and spirituality and healing, like, what is your most sacred medicine piece, as an aside discussion for our tools of the tradition? Because that's really what started the entire thing when we started the program, was building upon that one piece that you held most sacred. And then eventually it becomes this. This is a mesa. And this became then the most sacred medicine piece. The thing that holds all the stones that hold the energy from all the initiations and the mesa work and everything else. But you are your mesa. So again, it all comes back to you and you don't really need anything.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's like, I think for most of us that I have talked to anyway, previous years, that first original piece that a lot of people started bringing, like, are still in those wrapped mesas. Like, other pieces have changed for some of us, but it's, a lot of us still have that original piece that we brought in. Because if anything else, a lot of times that symbolizes the first step into realizing some sort of spiritual work or energy about yourself, the world around you, what you're doing. There were a couple of people that would use, crucifixes, even if they considered themselves, recovering Catholics, recovering Protestants, or whatever. Sometimes there's crucifixes. I myself had a tetragrammaton and still do inside there. Because that was one of the first pieces of anything that I ever had that kind of expanded my understanding of everything around, not just one sort of, here's this book, here's what it says, and this is all that there is. That learning and from that teacher kind of really opened up. So that piece is still in the center of my wrapped, mesa, and other pieces have kind of changed a little bit. But in talking with a few of the other students over the course of years, like, a lot of us still have that original piece that we started bringing, because that was just kind of, even if it was years ahead of time, that was the start, even if you didn't realize it at that time.
Yeah. And for me, I had that little clay flute. I didn't want to put it in my mesa. I was afraid it would get smashed up. So I left it on the outside, kind of as like a centerpiece. And now it just lives in my music box, if you will, because I don't want to carry it around all the time, risk breaking it or whatnot. And some people, they were huge pieces, and then you ended up picking a piece that represented your most sacred medicine piece to put in there. But really, it all kind of comes down to everything's sacred, and there's not really. It's just in the moment of what is important to you, what might have just a little bit more weight or influence in your life. But just as we shape and shift and change. That what's most sacred to you might shape, shift, and change over time too. Like now, one of my pieces in there is a coin from when I got when I went into rehab for alcohol, and because like if I didn't have sobriety today, I wouldn't be much use as a healer. So like just as of late, like that's really become a focal point in remembering my roots and sobriety and the willingness to be awake is really what is the most important thing because you can go through your whole life kind of sleeping, but the willingness to actually be awake and surrender to life on life's terms, words chosen very intentionally, really changes the experience in going through life just resisting or not even awake, like being Neo in the Matrix before he was unplugged. Like what quality and elevation of life are you really desiring? And that could impact things.
Yeah. So feel free, guys, to ask questions. If your previous students, questions, comments, which you feel has any part of your sacred pieces changed. It's not necessarily a bad thing to change it because we all learn, we all evolved, and maybe that sacred piece will change as your learning, continues to expand. My piece is still in there because it is that anchor back for me of like, here's where it started. And so, and it grows from there. Hey, Larry. Larry's like, hello to both of you and happy 2024, right? And hopefully 2024 is going to be great for everyone. 2023, in my opinion, was a little, could have done better. Try harder, 2023. Everything I hold dear for protection is either a gift from someone special or my father's religious medals, which I believe keep me protected with his protection from the other side. And see, like, and your spiritual piece could be something protection or handed down. Hey, Chair.
Hey, favorite guest combo.
And like my piece was a gift from a teacher of that time. So, wasn't something that I randomly had. It was a gift from a teacher. It was like, here you go. And it used to be a pendant at one point, but the little hanging spot finally just kind of worn away because it was a copper piece that had like some resin overlay to kind of seal in things, and it just kind of gave way. So now it lives inside my Kintu Mesa.
Very cool. Speaking of that, I need to open my Kintu Mesa up and give it new leaves in the near future. I haven't done that. I'm overdue. So I guess today's like we're kind of talking about that sacred medicine piece and like what holds you near and dear in your heart that if you were to start being of that path of service could be something that keeps you anchored to that, because that's really what all these tools and everything, it's really kind of like the morphic field that is programmed around that tool, what it holds for you, that though you don't need that tool, when you do use it, it's amplifying that intention and what you're doing. And like all the stones in here, each one represents like an anchoring with like a vision crystal or an anchoring with the earth stone or whatever the case is. A rattle holds a certain thing. Or I thought I had a bell. Oh no. I was going to annoy Melissa with the bell. Maybe she's going to be saved because I cannot see it. But they have all the different little all the effort you put into programming a piece then becomes an add-on when you're using it, but not a requirement. Like you don't need those stuff to do it. Actually, I'll show one of my favorite tools. I use this as a rattle and a clearing. You can take it and use Florida water, which we use for clearing and flowering and different things. And you can put it on the little ears of the corn and then you shake it over the person. So if somebody doesn't want you to spit on them, this is a really good alternative to deploy Florida water or Kananga water, or whatever other kind of water you use. And you also have the corn men for your despachos. So very multifunctional tool. And on your mesa, it represents abundance and the universe bringing you things and the collection of the rays of the sun. So there's like a whole bunch of symbolism that can also go into your tools.
Mm-hmm.
So I
I
remember
just
the first time Zane did that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea.
I just added through a gift of a friend, like another snake skin for my mesa, and it's still kind of laying on top, deciding where it's going to settle. Um, the whole change and serpents generally are medicine and guidance and being able to go down deep and find the root of the problem. So, and it's funny because we tend to work sometimes opposite, of how we do things in a way. Hank, you are very showy. I'm more of the quiet one in the back. You have the bigger setup. I tend to keep mine like it's table size. And you do a lot up and above, and a lot of mine is like down low and kind of like let's work here. So it's kind of almost like a balancing. And it's funny because Zane used to walk around the mesas, at the beginning, early Saturday morning, because usually we would get together Friday night, everybody set up their mesas, activate, do a come together, what happened since the last time. And he would just look at everybody's and he's like, it's amazing how everybody's mesas are different. And you can see in a way, not only their personality, but their like natural way of approaching the healing medicine by what they have on there, what things represent, and how they work with it. There we go. All of our Twitch friends coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I have to get permission to share other people's mesas because Melissa told me I had to. Otherwise, I would have like a slideshow. I could show people like how different mesa spreads work. But here's like the picture of my mesa, if you just to give you a little bit of an idea of what one of the spreads works like. And I modeled mine a lot after Zane because he does this particular mesa spread in a way because each one of the little steps actually represents a teaching, and you had the 4 different like little satellites, but it could also be just that very centerpiece. It could just be that large. It doesn't have to, this is really a teaching mesa, and it's not required if you were to like build it for yourself that it has to be that elaborate. I'm trying to figure out how to make the picture go away. There we go. Oh, now I have to put our little thing back. There we go.
Yeah,
I don't normal. Huh.
I don't think I have a picture of mine. At one point I did from when we were in class. It was more so because it was a picture of Hawaiian grandma. And she was standing in front of, we were, on opposite sides of it. So you got kind of a glimpse of what mine, but if you've been in the store when it lived at the store, you know what it looks like. But yeah, I think having permission before sharing somebody's sacred working space is a good idea.
Yeah, in hindsight, I agree.
But the tools of the trade. So generally, as you're going through your apprenticeship, you're learning to build that Kintu Mesa, which will start off with your most sacred piece. But there's rattles, there's a bell. As you saw in that picture, usually there's at least Florida water. My mesa has Florida and rose water because there's a little added element for the rose. Your Kintu Mesa goes in the middle. There's despacho type packet underneath. You'll have a representation for each of the elements. And it's funny because that was another piece that I accumulated probably a year and a half before the apprenticeship started, was the shell that is over, in what's the water area. And I got that from other healing facilitators, Joe and Lisa from Maple House Arts, and they had the shell that had a piece of peridot on one end and another gemstone on the other. I think that Joe had made, and they had been kind of carrying that piece around, and I had seen it 1 or 2 other times when I ran into them in other shows, and I pick it up and I'm like, I really like this, but typical parent, you can buy a million things for their kids without guilt, but to buy something for yourself, you're like, no, what if they need another pack of socks, right? So I wouldn't pick it up. And finally, I did. And I remember thinking like, you are so cool, but what am I going to do with you? Like, you're going to sit. And then here comes the apprenticeship, and we get to that side, and Zane's like, we're going to be working over here. Here's what we do. Here's, you're going to need something to symbolize that. And I'm like, oh, I've already got it. Here it is. It's been waiting. It knew before I did. And the same thing with like my Pachamama piece, like that big piece of kyanite I had been carrying around forever. And I'm like, oh, you go here. Got it. They knew before
My
I.
my earth piece I got from Alaska. I might be able to run and get it. I think it might be on the upstairs mesa that I just built. But anyway, it's a piece of granite that has a quartz vein, and in that quartz vein, you can see an actual gold trail came from a place where they had mined gold, and we happened to find this huge piece with a gold vein in it. And I showed it to Zane, and I'm like, oh, I think I might use this as my Pachamama piece. And he looks at it, and his eyes get wide. He's like, you sure as heck better use that piece as your Pachamama piece. And that's been my main stone for Pachamama ever since. So like you might already know, like I know that that's the piece. And then of course you also get feathers for the wind. And the very first apprenticeship, I actually had gone and gotten turkey feathers for everybody. And then like now it's more like you'll find one. Like it just happens to come across your path, and you'll know that that's the feather that you're supposed to work with. I think in the northern tradition, you even build like a circle outside, and you'll wait for nature to gift you the feather. So you'll like make a little circle. That's not the Peruvian tradition. That's a different tradition. But it's interesting how even in other traditions, they have like a similar thing where you're acquiring these little nature items that become these points of power for you to do your work.
Mm-hmm. I know at one point, like we were walking and we were supposed to be kind of paying attention for other pieces to put up. And I think it's when we were down for the turkey buzzards, and I was already kind of picking up, some stuff. And then Zane's like, oh, look for a stone for this, look for a stone. I'm like, oh, I already got 3 out of the 4. Sorry. Ahead of the game. But and then, it's like, okay, here we're talking about gathering all the stuff, and like what was said in the very beginning, like in a way, you really don't need to use any of it, because they're all just representations in a way of you and your connection to those pieces of nature. So, if you're considering stepping into their tradition, don't feel like you have to walk around carrying a million freaking items, because you don't. You can if you want to, but you don't need to. I know when we were coming to class and having to set up stuff, I'm like, the number of trips to and from the car to bring all the things in. And then I was with some friends at a paranormal investigation, and one of them had used this makeup metal casing that they were just pulling equipment out of. And I'm like, I'm like, what's the weight capacity of that thing? And they sent me the link, and then I bought it. And I'm like, everything fits in here except for the mayoral stabs. This is fantastic. It's heavy as heck getting it in and out of the car, but it's on wheels when it's not in the car. It was like the greatest thing find to wheel a mesa around. Although wasn't it Mary who carried hers around on a little tray?
Yeah. She had it on a tray, because the thing is, like every time you move your mesa, the little despacho packet that you build to like eat up all the heaviness from your clients or from yourself, you have to dispose of it and you have to make it new. But Mary had a wonderful inspiration that just carried on a tray, so she never has to do that.
I know that was kind of like but wait a minute, everything else changed. That is not the same space and energy. Like, shouldn't you still have to change it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, if you were to do that every once in a while, you would want to continue to change it every once in a while, and because it's going to get full.
Right.
It's only so much it can eat, and then it's going to be full. And then also you want to give those little kintued leaves, which is the 3 leaves and the corn and everything else that goes in there. You want to give it a rest and like gift it back to nature after it's served its purpose.
Yeah, so new friends coming in, we were discussing tools of the trade for the Peruvian shamanism. And honestly, it's not a super long talk unless, you have questions and comments.
Let us know your comments.
Yeah, I'm like, the lighting is horrible over there. I could pick my laptop up and go show mine, because mine's set up all the time in the living room. But there's no overhead lighting in the living room in this apartment, which I hate. So everything would look dark and just blah.
Well, there was a year where Zane had moved to California, and he had to fly back in, and he wasn't bringing anything with him. And fortunately, I had acquired enough cloths. I started like the Mesa spread that I showed. That's really my community spread. And whenever he comes now, like instead of lugging all his stuff around, he'll just have me put up that. And then it's really nice when we were at the retreat and things, like we kind of build a mesa together, and it really does become like a community thing. And every time you build it, it's a little bit different because it's representing the energy of that group. We have
Mhm.
talked about it on past streams. There was once where Zane put up his mesa and put it up 100% backwards. But he knew he was doing it wrong, but he was compelled to do it anyway. And it really starts to become a map of the energy work to be done for the group or for the class or whatever you happen to be doing, or for yourself. If you build the mesa for yourself and you just kind of put the stones where you feel they are, and then you look at it and you realize, well, that's not where they're supposed to be. It kind of gives you an idea of the work to need to be done to do the alchemy to put the things where they're supposed to be, quote unquote. So the whole thing, though you don't need it, it becomes a map of the other than conscious, of your soul walk, of your soul path, and the different things going on in your life. And just gives you a little bit of a different context in order to play that story out.
Yeah, and that's something that we go over. Um, the type of work that's done in each and how you kind of either go back one or over one to address depending on what's going on. Briefly, we don't want to get too in depth because that takes a lot longer than an hour.
Actually, I missed what you said because every once in a while, and I don't know if it's me or you, but you'll cut out just for a second, and I'm not sure if it's like my internet or your internet or just the gods smiting us.
Well, I doubt the gods are already mad at me. It's only what, the fourth? I haven't had time yet to do much of anything to catch their
I'm
attention.
sure you have some carryover for your naughtiness in the past year.
I mean, maybe there is that. There is that. I was rather tired by the end of the year of all the shenanigans that have taken place.
Good morning, Anthony.
Um, well, hello, and
What you
Goliath.
were talking about, the alchemy of the Mesa, I think.
Hmm. Yeah, so we do this discussion every Thursday, holidays aside, on the Peruvian shamanism and the benefits, the way it works, questions, comments, always welcome. We do have an apprenticeship that will be starting in April, but even still not welcoming and safe space to come in and learn. So, because we were doing it every other year, so every 2 years there'd be the full apprenticeship. Um, and you never have to take it. There's no pressure.
Yeah, typically we do the full apprenticeship every other year, and then in the off year we do, like for the alumni, like a deepening class of some kind. We've called it the master class in the past, and now the master class and the apprenticeship are kind of combined in this 1 year, because we have the 7 in-person weekends, but then in between you get this like online every week, like some online things to do. And so really he's going to the depth that he could do in that master class year, but being able to do it in tandem with the initiations. And it is a lot of information, but you don't have to memorize it all or use it all. Like even if you walked away with just a couple things that you really anchored, that's enough. And like every time you take it, like Mary Lee takes it every year, like there's something else that kind of stands out and you hone in, but you're still getting all the energy work that's happening for the group. So I know it's kind of like a buffet. You can, there's a whole bunch available to you, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to eat every single thing. Is a pretty good analogy to kind of describe it, because it's a lot for anybody to take in, but it's all available to you, and then take what is really resonating.
Mm-hmm.
My eyes are popping today. Cool. Thank you. I hope they do not pop out.
So yeah, feel free to ask questions. I'm sorry, I've got a little kitty cat demanding attention and trying to keep him from like yanking cords out. So, because he is very troublesome that way when he demands attention. Yeah, if you're a past student and you don't mind sharing like what your sacred piece was, because like I said, mine was a tetragrammaton, and Hank, yours was the clay flute, kind of like your start.
Ocarina.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this is not an ocarina, but this is a Pachamama whistle I can show. This is like a little thing you would blow to invoke Pachamama. This is a gift that someone gave me that had gone to Peru. So cool little flute. It does not sound very tuned, but it doesn't need to. It does its job.
Yeah, feel free to ask questions about it because Richie, I know you were maybe kind of considering. So this is the time and place to ask two of us any questions you might have. We'll have to circle back maybe at some point and talk with Zane and maybe add in like another Tuesday stream or something with him because he's more available on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
So you guys can pick his brain too. The teacher's teacher.
Yeah. In fact, we didn't have a stream last week because of the New Year, but the week before that, Zane was on, and it was a really cool rant. Not rant, but like Zane, when he gets going, you'll know once you see him online, you'll get what I mean. Like he'll start and he'll just be like, and there's just a fluidity to whatever comes through him. And then like getting him ranged in for questions was like he had to be on a phone call, so we had to like ring a little bell, and like that kind of broke the energy a little bit. And he came back, and then we had time for a few questions, and then he had to run.
Yeah, I was ready to remove him from stream so he wouldn't miss his phone call if it came if it came to that. So you know what? Here's a question for you, Hank. So what if somebody's wanting to join our apprenticeship and they don't know what their sacred piece would be?
Well, come just with you, yourself, and your soul. Pick something. If you can't pick anything, if there's even a category of things to choose from, just pick something and then reserve the right to change your mind, because you're just picking something in that moment to work with. And if you don't have anything that's popping to you, and if there's really nothing, then I would go out to nature, and maybe I would go to a sacred place that's sacred to you, and I would pick something from that to represent the place. Maybe like you can get creative, but if you're really running into something like that leading into the program, talk to myself, Melissa, or Zane, and based on that, your individual energy, we would come up with something for you to consider to get you to a place where you would have something.
Yeah, because those pieces inside of your Kintu Mesa can and will change. Sometimes they'll tell you when their time is done, and sometimes you'll just kind of know and like, okay, I feel like because I'm working on this is more representative of what I need. The little pieces do not get mad at you. If you move them around, like there is no like, is this right or is this okay? They all have their own little personalities and they are working with you and for you, so they understand your intention anyway. So it's okay to change those pieces out.
Yeah. And Richie asked, since I'm just coming in, can you explain a sacred piece? And what we were mentioning is when we were going into any of the years of the apprenticeship program, one of the things coming into it is to pick your most sacred medicine piece, like whatever you would consider that to be as someone of service or your spiritual path or as a healer. And mine was a little clay flute because it represented my breath. And for me, my breath was the most sacred thing I had as a healer, because without my breath, I'm not alive. So that was like my most sacred thing. And then the flute also represented earth and water and wind and fire. So it also represented the elements and all that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And then for Melissa, yours was, I can't pronounce the name.
Of whatever it was. Tetragrammaton.
Tetragrammaton. Mm-hmm. And that was a gift from one of her teachers. And then other people brought in little statues of a deity that was special to them. Some people brought a sacred text. There were all kinds of different things. There's no right or wrong answer to it, but essentially it's something that anchors you to your sense of sacred self. It's something that reminds you that there is sacredness. And so like it's the very beginning of building like a morphic field of potency for you to do your work. And the whole idea with this becomes your sacred piece eventually, your Kintu Mesha, that has all the things including your sacred piece. But this represents, even on your worst day, this can do the work. You can have the worst day possible, but the field that your sacred medicine pieces hold can do the work even if you're having your worst day. It doesn't matter. You can still show up and be fully present and do the work that's required.
Mm-hmm. Which I even had that happen a couple months after Zane literally said that. Like, your Kintu Mesha does not have a bad day. So I think it was like a psychic fair day and the store's busy and customers coming in, and the boyfriend of the customer, and he was just like, please, I need you to do something. She's told me you do this, and I'm like, this is not the time. Like, the store is chaos and we're busy and I'm stretched all the way around. Like, I can't even concentrate on this for you. And blah, blah, blah. And like they still kept hanging around. And I'm like, oh, and then I hear Zane, your Misha never has a bad day. Even if you can't concentrate, it doesn't, yeah. I'm like, okay, quickly, come here, sit here, you know. And he looked better, felt better, came back, another day, was like, thank you so much, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, learned that one in person. Thanks. um, so and it's kind of reassuring, right? Because in a way, if you're somebody who is anxious and always kind of like, am I doing it right? You can kind of put that onus on this piece because that piece is always going to do it right. So it was nice to know that even if I was feeling rushed and I'm not in that center space, and can I tune out all of this other stuff going on in the store to listen and to hear properly? Well, the Misha, which is my higher self, is still going to do it properly, regardless of what I'm doing down here. So that intention is set, it does. If you're able to be present in that moment and help, more the better. But the Misha never has a bad day. The Misha's never mad. The Misha's never stressed. It's just perfect in what it is.
Mhm.
So yeah, I got to hear that. And there were so many times where Zane's voice going on in the back of my head as reminders at time. And I'm like, oh, good Lord. So yeah, Richie. So for your sacred piece and your sacred space, I mean, if you decide to join us, it's whatever you feel is the anchoring for you for what is your sacredness. And like I said, we've seen so many pieces because we've had so many apprenticeships, and we've seen anything from Christian pieces to pagan pieces to like musical pieces to, there is no judgment of what your sacred piece is. Just because you're coming into a shaman program doesn't mean it has to be the most specialist rock ever.
Huh.
So, no worries there. Oh, Karen, are you saying that you're having a hard time picking one out of all?
Yeah, it's hard to pick them if you have so many. One interesting thing in this tradition, our concept of creator is Wiracocha, which literally means water and oil. And I think of it as the container that holds space for it all. And it's really about the ability to blend any two energies harmoniously every time. And that can only be done in that container of the field of living energy, that whenever something's happening here, there's something to offset that. And there's always, on some level, there's always a kind of an irony. You might not see it at all levels, but there's always some sort of balancing effect within that whole.
Mhm.
Let's see.
Um, so Anthony says, describe the significance of the bell in our work.
Ooh, there's all kinds of fun stuff. I think the main thing, little bell. I know
Mhm.
Melissa loves it so much. But I look at it like the dinner bell, and like all chimes and didgeridoos and things are like this bridging energy, and it's like ringing the bell to call spirit, and that's how we have our little songs that we sing, Armando, 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 aha, hi yo, while you're ringing your bell. It's calling attention, spirit, and calling them there because you're basically elevating the energy here, but calling them to meet you, and then offering them whatever you're going to be offering them, which can be your hucha, which can be your sami. And that's the main thing that I use it for, is to start opening space and to create that waka, that portal or door to the upper world where you are meeting, you're meeting your spirits and the elements, not elements. In our tradition, it's not elements. It is the spirit of the earth and the spirit of water, but you're meeting them and to do the work. Do you use the bow for anything in
Um,
particular yourself, or the same thing?
Mainly calling in, and then every now and then, depending on any of the healing work, as you know, Hank, sound frequency can be healing, can be destructive, can be all sorts of things. And so sometimes the smaller, higher pitch bells, in the calling, it's like that respectful demand of like, come here, come, join in this work in this ceremony. But in the healing, if somebody is, heavy, those higher pitched, smaller bells kind of help raise the energy up of the client, of the person that you're working with. And depending on what type of chaos around them, if they have it, not everybody does, it can help disperse some of that mucky, chaotic energy hanging around them. And at the same time, heavier noises, can help anchor, bring down, and dissipate too much high, bring that back down. So, the bells for the respectful demand of like come and, participate and kind of like, what way back, what in the rancher days where you ring the triangle, like time to come
Yeah.
eat, come here. It's time to do some work. And then in working with the client and, the rattle, kind of the same thing, because a lot of us, hold the rattle and the bell in one hand, and you're using both of them at the same time in opening, sometimes in the dissipation. And, rattle can be used same way in some of the healing work for similar yet different reasons. Richie's like, so I like my Celtic pentagram pendant and stones. I feel naked leaving the house without. And you could put, your Celtic pentagram in the middle. Stones, like you don't want to dump all of them in there because you're building the rest around. But even still, I won't say that's an absolute no not to put them all in there. It's just kind of like each person's different. And maybe some of those pieces you carry around with you all the time are going to start representing other pieces as we work through there. Let's see. And Brooke's like, how crazy would it be if my sacred piece was a Christmas ornament? Not.
No, could totally be that.
Not at all. I would be more worried about carrying it around to and from ceremony, though, if not breaking it, but that's me.
Yeah. There's some things that are more subjected to wear and tear that I just put in a separate little pouch in my mesa, and then it kind of protects it from bumping up against things. So like but if it's really breakable, like my flute was, and it's something that I didn't put in my mesa, and I just kept it on the outside kind of as a decorative piece, like it would be looped in, and then it would just be in the center, and it would just be like on top of it. And then I could use it too, if I wanted to, like a little whistle, which was cool.
Yeah. I mean, my little, it was a pendant. Like I said, the little bail on it finally gave way, broke apart. And it has like this epoxy resin over it protecting, because there's the tetragrammaton on the top, and then on the back are more sigils and things. And over the course of years of wearing it, that protective coating was starting to degrade, and some of the color on some of the pieces were wearing off. So I'm like, it goes in here. And now I know, and yes, I understand there's rocks in here, but if it keeps just kind of wearing away, it is what it is. It's meant to happen, for me and my piece. I'm okay with it slowly wearing away and giving of itself to the rest of the Mesha. And when it's time to completely change it out, I'll know. It'll tell me.
Yeah. And you find that, speaking of changing things out, like you might have your stones in the middle, and you open your Mesha one time, and all of a sudden one of the stones is in one of the first folds or the last fold. And when you put it back, then you put it in the same place, and you will find that stones could actually work their way out of the mesa that way. It will go from one fold to another fold to another fold, and eventually you take it out. And you'll put another one in, you work it in, put in the first fold, and it works its way in. And so like through the whole process of getting different stones to represent things, there's also a process to change out stones. That's one way. There's other ways. But it's kind of neat. Like when a piece is done, it might tell you because it wants out, and it's going to start moving its way out. Or it will just break. I had one of my Pachamama stones in my Kintu Mesha. It broke long ways. Like it was a triangle stone, and it broke completely long ways, 2 complete halves. And I showed it to Zane, and he's like, oh, it took a hit for you. And I ended up retiring that piece and getting a new one for Pachamama. At first, I had this illusion of using yarn and tying it together, but it didn't work really well.
Yeah, it's done. Let it be.
It's like, I'm done, dude. I took a hit. Retire me, please.
I need a nap. Stop it. Judy says, my sacred piece is a pitch pipe. I wouldn't want to wrap it up because I use it almost every day. That's where you could put it on top, like what Zane does with his, or Zane Hank does with his. Rich is like, I had a lapis and lapis just completely vanished. I at one point had a sunstone pendulum way before the apprenticeship, and that thing would go on field trips without me. It was so rude. It would never ask if I wanted to go, and then it would just randomly show up in
Yep.
weird places. And I'm like, oh, now you can come back. It's been
Yeah,
gone for a couple of years. I don't think it's coming back, but
I think that's called apporting. I know it's usually with physical mediumship when they spit out the gems, but I think any physical object going from point A to point B is an apport. And my most fun story, I was at Lilydale and I had this talisman, and Spirit said, put it on Inspiration Stump. And I was very resistant to this because I really liked this little healer talisman that I had. And I was resisting, and then I heard, "Don't worry, it'll be back." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, right. How am I going to get this thing back?" But I did it. I left it on Inspiration Stump. Left it. Like 3 years later, I sit down to meditate, and the thing is on my meditation altar. And I was like, "Holy!" Like it's like things like that just give such validation to the work and like the magic of the world that we live in. So fun
Mhm.
stuff. So your things might go on walkabout, but hopefully they come back.
Right. Karen is like, I would put Jesus in center with my Ganesha statue and my crystals. Is that too much? Mm, mm, mm. No, everybody's is different. Like you'll have certain points that live kind of in a certain way, but there is so much room working around. Um, I almost always keep certain stones around the center point, around my Mesha, so they're constantly being charged and healed. For certain types of clients or patients that come in, and it's a certain type of stone that helps with cancer and can be hard to find. So I keep those on there, and if somebody comes in and they're like blah blah blah, and I'm like, come back tomorrow. I'm probably the only one that maybe does that, but that's important to me. So showing that each setup can be different. So um, you can get Ganesha on there, you can get Jesus on there. And I think we've talked about this before, but like if you were to stand Christ, at the south by water and face plant him, like the way things line up and fall, like he would be down to where the water, the emotion would be on that heart side, and the knowledge and everything would be on that right side. So there is some Christian influence in some of the working because of the history and what's the word for them coming in and like forcing the Christianity around. Um,
Conversion.
yeah, and,
But the Peru one,
hard.
the
I
thing
mean,
is that in the tradition they had this prophecy of a fifth level healer, and when the Spanish came and talked about Christ, they're like, "Oh, good, it happened." Like they just took that as part of the prophecy, and they just blended in a lot of the Christianity into their tradition. Like in despachos, instead of llama blood, you use wine now, and crackers you can use. So there's like a lot of influence in a
mhm,
positive way because they took the best and left the rest in a way. And when they talked about a door, that's why San Pedro is called San Pedro. It's Saint Peter. They said we have the door to God at Saint Peter. Like, oh, we have that. It's this cactus. And they just did transference of some of the things, and then there just became a reference point of Christianity within the Peruvian tradition.
mhm.
It really is a blending of all things, which is really great. And when I started, I did have a crucifix on my. Well, I still do have a crucifix on my mesa, and I have my moon candle as a Mama Mary candle, and so I have little influences as well.
So Richie's like, my obsidian disappeared from the cup I leave my stones in, and 2 months later, it was in my bedside stand drawer.
Cool.
Yeah, see, went on a field trip, forgot to ask permission. You didn't get to sign that slip, but you didn't have to pay out the lunch money. So there's that.
I love stuff like that though because it just gives such validation. Like I forgot who said it. They were saying like, oh, that level of validation is priceless when you see stuff like that. Because shaman sometimes we could think we're a little crazy, and when you find something like that that is like undisputable in a way, it just kind of gives a sense of peace. Like, yeah, I might be crazy, but this is real crazy stuff. It's good. It's not fake crazy.
Hmm.
Or what was Zane's teacher? He would say, "Yes, we're crazy, but there's good work to do with the crazy."
Hmm. Well, and there was a part in the apprenticeship too where he had said like you are hallucinating the work that needs to be done and the outcome. And if you can hallucinate to where other people see it as well, it's even better. So, but that it's just a different way of saying like the visualization and the thought becomes the reality. Um, I like we're hallucinating and we're crazy. Woo, it's more fun. Think of it that way for me. Um, oh wow, it's already like almost 10 till.
I know it doesn't feel like we've been talking that long, but apparently we have been.
Yeah. So guys, if you have any questions, feel free to
Yeah,
ask.
or if you have topics you'd like us to address next time, because it's always like the day before. Melissa's like, "We got a topic," and I'm like, "I don't know."
Yeah.
We can try to get these scheduled more in advance with what the topic's going to be. If there's something specific that you want to hear about or know about, and if you are interested in the program and you want to go over like what entails actually setting up, just reach out to me. We want to do what we can to work with people that really feel called to take it. But there's a link in the description where you can go and get more information. We could also reach out to me and or Melissa to talk about that.
Hmm.
Probably more me than Melissa, but you can reach out to whoever you want.
Yeah. Though Hank, you are in store in person today. So if you're local and you want to come ask questions, you can do that today. And Hank, you usually have at least your little Misha with you.
Today I will have my Mesha, a sound bowl, 3 tuning forks, and tarot decks is what I have, my little mini setup. And then I have an office in West like any other day is available too. Or on my website, there's a discovery call. If you want to talk specific things about the program and to you and how to, if it's right for you, whatever, you can book a discovery call and we could have a quick Zoom and discuss your situation and answer your questions one-on-one. So that's also an option for everyone if you want to take advantage of that and kind of get a
Mhm.
little bit more of a personalized dialogue about what the program is and how it might fit into your life.
Yeah. Because that's one thing, this tradition is pretty easy to work around. It's not like so strict that, you are dictated by days and hours, what you have to do. Um, and it's easy to work in and use the practices day to day, even standing in line at Walmart, you know, you
Yeah.
can do things.
In fact, one of the exercises is to do just that. Find the long. Zane will say, find the longest line where you're going to find the people that are really, annoyed being there. And then
Yeah.
there's a technique where you clean up the litter. Because we look at when people are being annoyed and they're kind of passion puking into the environment. You can run an energy practice and you're just cleaning up the litter. It's fair game, and you start by practicing some techniques in those scenarios and building up to doing that technique in different ways. So
Mhm.
good stuff.
And nobody knows that you're really kind of doing.
You've seen the crowd at Walmart? Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I've gone into Walmart once and like just saw like it was closer to Christmas and I went in and I just needed like one little thing and I just took a look and was like, this one little thing is not worth this. And I left. I didn't want to deal with any of that. It's not that I couldn't deal with it, but I'd rather go somewhere else at that point. And even self-checkout had like a line down the whole little main concourse thing. It was wild.
Yeah, I was in one yesterday, and usually I do the delivery mainly because I don't have a lot of free time anyway to go walk around and gather things. So I just have it delivered. But yesterday, I had time in between like other appointments, and I'm like, well, if I'm going to make this lasagna, I need to go get this stuff now. And it's quicker to get it now than hope for a delivery tonight, and the driver can find the place, right? So I just went in there and grabbed it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't get road rage driving. I get road rage walking in Walmart.
Yeah, you're probably running your cart into people, going left and right, trying to run them off the aisle. Remember, the Misha is you, and you are the Misha. This does not get bad days.
It's okay. They're just having a hard time deciding which pasta sauce they want. Get the Prego. Move along. So yeah, but it's a good reminder then be like, okay, I am the one putting off the E in the aisle. Everybody else is just having a time, and me, because I want to get out and I'm rushed, quit putting that out there for everybody else, right? So reminder for myself. Right, people walk too slow. They do. Driving, fine. Put me in a store with a bunch of people, especially the ones that stop walking out of nowhere right in front of you and they don't get off to the side. Yeah, remember. Remember. But
Any final questions? And for next week, maybe we can talk about, you mentioned Myro staffs. We could do a whole thing on those, or the Chumpy Stones, which I never really got to the other day. We could do one or both of
yeah,
those.
it's like that was a topic, but we didn't really. We got sidetracked, didn't we?
No, I was gonna do it by myself, but then that day, I think the morning unfolded in a different way, and I reprioritized, and I didn't do the stream. So like I was ready to do it. I even have a pretty graphic, so I can put that up for next week.
There we go.
And we could do Chumpy Stones, and then Morel staffs could be a whole thing on their own. There's I mean, there's not much to talk about, but if you haven't figured out by now, we have our topic to kind of get the ball rolling. But what we really love is when you have a question or you have an inspiration, and we get to kind of follow the energy of what's right for the group to talk about. So all of our topics are just excuses for us to actually speak to the energy in that moment.
Yeah, to create that safe space for you to ask questions and learn about all the things that we have knowledge about. Or faith that we do.
And we also need to do streams that are more than just this tradition, because Melissa and I both have backgrounds that go way. We have a lot. We know a lot of stuff. Especially Melissa's a book nerd. Look at that shelf behind her. Look at all those books that she's read or has pretended to read.
Well, I mean, to be fair, there's a mix of fiction and nonfiction. Borders manager. So yeah, I can't claim that these are all learning things. I mean, like right here, we have Dexter, right? What do we learn from Dexter?
It's educational, right? How to get away with murder.
Sure. Have a boat, have access to the ocean, know your current tides, know how to FBI find people. So, oh, thank you. Thank you much. It's a lot of gems in this convo. I'm excited to watch the replay. And whoops, Mary, it jumped. Is your event with Cricket on the 3rd Thursday of this month?
No, it's the fourth Thursday. I don't know how we got onto the 3rd Thursdays, but it's supposed to be the 4th Thursday. So I will have breathwork and sound on the 4th Thursday at Emergency Being in Westlake. Friday ceremony and sound, and then the Saturday morning, 4th Saturday, is a kind of a drumming / sound bath for shadow integration. So I have 3 sound events back to back to back.
There you go.
Which is always the 4th weekend of every month. I think something happened because of the holidays or something, and I got thrown off.
Shifted.
Cricket asked me the same question.
There was like an extra weekend in one of the recent months. So it was even thrown off like the end of the month, like sound healing with Nanette. You know, we thought it was one, but it became the other. And then it ended up working out. She had so many people. I had to go move furniture, like that big desk and everything, to like the other side of the office and everything. So we had room to put everybody. So I'm like, well, I guess this is the universe saying this is the Saturday to do every month. Well, thank you for joining us, guys. Yeah, we'll be back next Thursday. And if you have comments or suggestions on what topic you would like us to talk about, but maybe touching base with those Chumpy Stones. And that might be more you, Hank. I don't use mine near as much as you do.
I don't use mine a lot because like the way you typically use it, you have to do so much other stuff. You don't just like randomly belt people, you know. There's like stuff you do leading up to that. So it's not very frequent that there's like a belting in the wild, as I would call it. But then there's less traditional ways you can use them, and I can speak about some of those.
Mm-hmm.
So, Anthony was just saying he had a great experience at the sound bath that Cricket and I did, and a Nike, and it looks like Mary won't be able to make it this time, but that's okay. That's okay. We're going to be doing a cacao ceremony on February 16th. Limited, I think, to 12 people. So we're going to be doing that. That will be fun. That will be at my place. And then I got to figure out something else to do over at Melissa's. I think the first Thursday of every month, not starting this month, but I'll do my, starting in February, I'll do a Mesa clinic where I'll have a big Mesa set up in the room and people can just book and come in and just have like by donation, like a little Peruvian style shamana healing, and I'll start doing that next month in the big space at Melissa's place. Look at that, I rhymed. I'm a poet, and I didn't even know it.
Well, it's not solid concrete until we get the event actually up. So we'll add that to my list of things to do to corner you on that and make it a thing.
I already even have it in Acuity. All I have to do is turn it on and put out a link. So I'll use the same thing for Pachamama Annie. What?
Until it's turned on, I'll believe it when I see it.
It's fine. We'll be fine. We'll do it today.
Well, thanks for joining, guys. We'll be back next Thursday, same time, same channel. There you go. Mary's like, I'll make a note, right? Yeah, hold them to it, Mary. Hold them to it.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Until the next time, Auf Wiedersehen. Or I don't know how you would say it for reading your text because we don't actually see or hear you. But anyway, you guys have a wonderful day and Happy New Year.